Oh my God. King Lear's
Hello.
tied.
Hi, is this Daniel Negreanu?
It is.
Daniel, welcome to the 22Q Charity Poker Podcast. We are
Hey, how you
thrilled.
guys doing?
We're doing great, man. We're thrilled to have you on. First and foremost, thank you so much for getting the word out like you did over the past few days. It's you don't even realize the asset that you've been to this charity just by speaking your mind, and it's done phenomenal things to help us raise money and awareness for these kids. I really want to just personally thank you.
Thank me for my big, dirty mouth.
Yeah, it's awesome. What are you doing? You're playing the W Coop right now?
I'm actually, I played 2 of them already today and busted both and just waiting on the third one now.
What's the third one?
Well, the third one's a $215 no-limit hold'em turbo with rebuys for an hour.
Wow, that could actually play really, really big. That's cool. How is your? I know you've only been there probably since yesterday, I would imagine, but how's it feel to be playing on PokerStars again?
Well, I've been here for a couple days now. I came here on the 31st just to get settled into my new apartment here. Really like it. I mean, I like where I'm at in Toronto. Downtown Toronto is just a great area. There's a vegan restaurant in my building, right in the heart of the city. So I'm really enjoying where I'm at. And so far, no luck in the tournaments, but it's fun to. The grind is fun. You know, this is just the beginning. But we played 4 events. There's 61. So just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I'm really actually envious of you right now because the W Coop was always something that I really looked forward to, and I'm shut out, so I won't be joining you. Daniel, this is weird because we've been doing these radio shows for a year now, and the first day today's actually the 1-year anniversary of the first time we did a radio show, and the first day I had said that I'll feel like we've done a good job if we ever get to talk to Daniel Negreanu, and here you are. So thank you for that from a personal note. And just so you know, you're also on the line with myself. I'm Johnny Sepp, and my 2 co-hosts, Kevin Wright and Brandon Gerson.
Hey, Daniel. How you doing?
Hey guys, good, thanks.
How you doing, Daniel? Thanks for being with us.
You know,
No
I
problem.
don't. I obviously know that you have no idea who I am, but I did have a funny story that involved you that you may remember. We have a mutual acquaintance, a gentleman named Mike Lang,
Okay.
and this was about maybe 2 years ago, and you had been drinking a little bit that night, having a good time, and you came into the Bellagio with Mike, and I was playing 30-60 Hold'em at the time. And Mike came over and said hello to me, and you started telling me a story. I can't remember if it was about Mike or somebody else, and it involved them losing a hand with pocket kings, and then getting. I'm sorry.
I said I knew you were going there.
Yep, and then you went on to tell me that was it Mike that did this, or I don't remember, but anyhow, you told me that after he lost a hand, he literally took the two cards, and ate them and actually swallowed them. And at that exact moment, I picked up pocket kings, and then you sat down and played my hand. Do you kind of remember the night I'm referring to?
Yeah, I remember the night that the Kings thing happened. That was pretty funny. Mike Lang, we decided to go play like some 2040. I jumped into a 2040 game, and then it was limit. It was like, I don't know, 10 years ago. And then we played overs, and I busted him in a hand where I had ace-10, he had 2 kings. And he said, if I lose these 2 kings, I'm going to eat them. So he ripped up the plastic chem cards into little pieces, and then he started eating them. And that's dangerous. I don't think he realized that they're sharp. And all of a sudden, his face was beet red. He was choking. He looked bad. And then my friend said to sell him 10 minutes. Well, what he did was he went downstairs to his car, and he took out a windshield wiper, like a plastic windshield wiper, and was sticking it down his throat because he thought that might be a good idea. Well, that didn't work so well. So he went home to get a coat hanger. So he thought maybe with a coat hanger he could pluck out the cards. Okay, eventually, like, cooler head prevailed, and he went to the hospital. But my gosh, like, he was literally sticking a windshield wiper down his throat, then a coat hanger.
Jesus, that's amazing. That's almost unbelievable.
True story.
Wow.
That's awesome. Hey, Daniel, just a couple questions. We have an interactive chat that happens along with our podcast here, and people are just firing off questions for you. And I just want to get in as many as I can. So they might sound like I'm jumping all over the place, but I'm just curious. The Hall of Fame inductions are coming up shortly. Who I get the nomination process just closed. Who do you think deserves to be in the Hall of Fame this year?
Well, I know they're not going to get in, but I still believe wholeheartedly that Bruno Fatoussi and Eric Drake should be in. I think that the Hall of Fame doesn't do enough to support poker in the rest of the world. It's the Hall of Fame for the world, not the Hall of Fame for America. So a guy like Bruno Fatoussi was like the godfather of poker in France and really was instrumental in bringing the first WPT to Paris over there. Eric Drake is a name that you might not remember quite as well. He was he works with Maury on a lot of the poker shows, but before that, he was tournament director at the World Series of Poker. He created the concept of the super satellite, which was revolutionary. He's a stud player who plays in Los Angeles and some bigger games, and of course, Bruno plays all the games. And I think guys like that certainly deserve, for more than one reason. You know, they hit all the criteria in terms of what it takes to get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, there's actually a bunch of names have been batted around lately, and you don't see those names come up on anybody's short list. And from the sounds of it, it sounds like they really should be right in that mix. But unfortunately, I think they might get
Well, the way they do it now, it's just stupid. I'm just gonna be honest, it's just dumb. The way they do it now, it's like, you know, they have random fans vote for who they think should be nominated, right? But I mean, in today's poker, does anyone who watches poker on ESPN, they have any idea who Eric Drake or Bruno Fatoussi really are? They don't have a clue. They're essentially like allowing, quote unquote, the fans to dictate something that should be and always was sort of, you know, done amongst the peers and people who are in the know. And the average fan is not going to know these names, so they're going to name names that they've heard of rather than names that they should be inducting.
Yeah, great point. How come there's not? Why wouldn't there be a committee to appoint?
No, there is. But the process works like this: to get the nomination list, what they do is they go to the fans, and then the fans nominate who they think they should be nominated. Then all the living members of the Hall of Fame, as well as some media members and some other people on the panel, they make their votes, and then that's how the 2 people get in out of like 10 that are nominated.
Well, I put in my nomination for Lee Jones just the other day. That's who I'm pulling for to get into the Hall of Fame this year. But Bruno Fatoussi is a name that didn't even come to mind, and Eric Drake as well. I'm actually well aware of Eric Drake. It's one of those names that you just kind of, it's an oversight. Also, while I have you on, Daniel, before I get into more questions, would you mind settling a bet for me?
Mm-hmm.
I got into a discussion with one of our users, and it lasted about 2 hours. And ultimately, we decided that we would pose the question to you, and whatever you said, the loser would pay out the winner. And the question was, in a cash game scenario, if you're ahead, say you have aces against deuces, is it better to run it twice or run it 1 or 3 times?
So are those my only 2 options?
Those are your only 2 options: running it 3 times or running it twice.
Here's the problem, okay? This is a trick question because it doesn't make a damn difference how many times you run it at all. It's equally stupid. I mean, it doesn't change. What's better? Neither is better. The answer is neither. What's better? What's the definition of better? Better for what? Better for who? Better for what?
What's a better situation? If you're the guy who's ahead, are you leaving with more money more often?
It's 100% equal. It's equal. It's the exact same situation. If you run it once, twice, 3 times, 100 times, 1,000,000 times, 27 million times, it's equal. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter how many times you run it.
So why would somebody run it twice?
In terms of your EV.
Why would somebody run it twice then?
Because it lowers your fluctuation and your standard deviation. So if you're playing a really big game, let's say you only had $1 million to your name and you have a pot that's being played for $1 million, right? For your whole bankroll. And you run it once. Even though you're a 4-to-1 favorite to get to $4 million, you might not be able to take that risk because you can't afford it. So essentially, by running it twice, you lower your risk is all you do, but you don't change the EV of the hand at all. And anyone who doesn't get that isn't thinking straight. Think about it, gentlemen. What's the difference how many times you run it? The odds are the same every single time.
Kevin, can you interject into this conversation?
No, because actually, since you said that, it actually makes a ton more sense.
Oh, here we go. He rambled for an hour earlier.
No, what I said before actually is just that it controls variance. Actually, that the fact is that if you're an 80% favorite and you run it multiple times, that it's just controlling your variance, and that's basically what it's talking about. What he's saying is that if you're properly rolled over your time of your life, that it's really not going to matter no matter what, and that really does make a lot more sense what he's saying. Daniel, real quick.
Yeah, all you're doing is make the pots half small. It's half the size. You're just playing smaller.
Daniel, actually, while we have you real quick, too, Victor Ramden is actually in our chat, and he wants to make sure that we say hello to you for him. And he says he's also in downtown Toronto, and he hopes you're doing well.
Tell him we'll go for a beer. Oh, I'll tell him. Say, okay, we'll go for a beer later. There's a Brazilian festival going on right outside my room, so we'll go dancing later. And then Victor can go pick up more ladies. You know, Victor's a ladies' man. He's got how many? I think he's got 7 wives and 35 children.
So Daniel didn't settle my bet, so that kind of sucks because I was actually counting on.
No, I settled your bet. I basically told you both that you're both wrong. You both lose the bet.
I guess
so
that's
I
a
should
push.
get the money, and the money should be donated to charity.
That's what we're gonna do.
Wrong, you're
100% right.
I am gonna donate the amount of the money.
To you for the kids, for the children.
There you go.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to go on my own forum and say that I was wrong.
You know,
You both were.
I wrote equations and everything.
I do have to tell you that you're probably the first person ever to kind of tongue-tie Johnny Supp here, and I think it's clearly just the fact that he's a little awestruck, but maybe you could settle another quick bet for us because it was something we were talking about before you came on the air. And this isn't something you have to answer, but I think you'll find it kind of hilarious, the 3 answers that we got before you came on. There was a little discussion that for the average person in America or anywhere, who they thought the biggest poker superstar was. And one person, a couple of us actually said you, and another one of the co-hosts said Phil Ivey. So we actually called 3 separate poker rooms, and the 3 answers that we got out of the individuals, one was Doyle Brunson, the second was King Lear, and the third one was they work in a poker room in Niagara, and they do not know any poker players other than anyone who plays in the 2-4 limit game there. So I thought that maybe you might actually found that a little amusing.
That's weird. They must have been messing with you.
In all honesty, including yourself, who do you think is the biggest superstar in poker?
Well, what's the definition of superstar?
Well, it's open for interpretation. Whatever your personal definition
If you're
is.
asking me who I think the best poker player in the world is, I think it's Phil Ivey. If you're asking me who the most famous poker player in the world is, I would say it's not Phil Ivey.
Okay, fair enough. Daniel just not settling bets at all this evening.
Well, no, in that case, I mean, again, I think like if you're talking about skill, who's got the whole package, and Phil Ivey's, in terms of superstar skill, but in terms of like notoriety, like if you walk down the streets, who would recognize you more? I think that because I'm with Poker Stars and they've done a lot of work putting me in commercials, and I've done a lot more media that it would that more people would recognize my face and name.
Awesome. Daniel, are you taking I'm sorry, we're in our 16th hour, by the way, of this podcast, so
For the kids.
if we come across as like we're a little tired or it's starting to get to us, it's because it is. But I'm curious, what's your schedule looking like? Are you taking on more poker, or are you in one of the periods where you're kind of stepping back from it?
I'm in the W Coop zone. That's 3 weeks of every day, no leaving the room, no getting dressed, just wearing my flips and no underwear for 3 weeks, grinding. And then after that, I'm going to Cannes to play the World Series Europe, and then I'll do San Remo. So I'm in the midst of a 6-week road trip that's just on the cusp of starting, and then after that, I'm going to go home for a bit and reassess what's up for the rest of the year.
Are you hungry to win the Player of the Year series because you weren't able to get it last year?
Yeah, it was so close. I mean, I was in the final table of the 8th game. There was 5 left. If I'd won that, I was chip leader with like 6 or 7 left, and if I'd won, I would have won the Player of the Year. But this crazy Russian played like a jackass and beat me in a few Raz hands, and I ended up coming in 5th. Or 3rd. What did I come? 3rd. I don't remember what I came. 5th or 3rd. One of those two.
Do you still enjoy poker as much as you used to, Daniel?
It depends what types of poker. There are moments where I like if I'm playing really high stakes poker, mixed games, I enjoy that. a form of poker that's not really poker, but that I've really, really started to enjoy is open-faced Chinese poker. That's a game that I could play for free and really enjoy.
Have you played Taiwanese poker yet?
I think so.
It's going to be the next big thing. It's much better than Chinese in my opinion, but I'm not going to get into it with you
No,
because
I'm talking about open-faced Chinese.
Open-faced Chinese. Yes, I'm aware of the game, but I haven't played it yet. What's the difference between open-faced Chinese?
Open-faced Chinese is the greatest game I've ever played. It's so cool. It's not Chinese poker is boring. Regular Chinese poker, you just set your hand and then, that's it. But with open-faced, everyone starts with 5 cards, and then you got to place your cards on the bottom, middle, or top than the first 5. Then you get 1 card at a time and have to fill out a hand that way. So you have a lot of tough decisions. And if you foul your hand, you obviously it's the same as getting scooped. And there's, of course, royalties and blah, blah, blah. But the position matters because if you're on the button and if you're playing 4-handed, all of a sudden, before you say 8-handed, you see 15 cards. So there's like a lot of things to compute and, really think about.
Interesting. Daniel, I wanted to ask you, and I'm not quite sure, but this question's been asked 3 times to me by a user in the chat, and he wants me to ask, Daniel, what were you thinking when the guy showed you Queen 10 to make Broadway when you flopped a set of aces at the feature table in this year's WSOP main event? He said, your face looked sinister. I just have to know on a level of 1 to 10 how much internal rage there was. And I'm not familiar with the hand at all that he's even referring to. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yeah, the flop came ace-7-4 in the World Series main event. I had pocket aces. He had queen 10. He checked, I checked. The turn was a king. He bet, I called. There was a jack. He bet, I raised him. He went all in, and I called, and he didn't have a lot more. But I was most upset, frankly, with the dealer. Not like the dealer. I don't hate the dealer, but I was upset that when the player was thinking, the dealer was counting his chips, but stood up and out of his chair, so I couldn't see the player at all while I was thinking about making the call. So I was basically I had a sort of a blind read, and I was kind of annoyed with myself for not saying something. I should have said, sit down, and let me see him. But as far as the way I played the hand, I'm fine with it. The call in the river, it's just too difficult to throw away because he flinched on the flop like he wanted to do something. I thought he might have 3 7s and overplay it. I didn't know enough about the guy to be able to fold 3 aces in that spot.
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering that. Kevin, Johnny, did you guys have any other questions?
I think the most important thing is just thank you for everything you've done so far us and spread
you
the
brought
word
a lot
about-
of you've really brought a lot of attention to a very, very worthy cause, and although it's funny how it worked out. As you know, we just simply wanted to post something that we felt was newsworthy, and we were clearly censored. But because of you and your involvement, it's brought even more attention to the 22Q Foundation, and helped us, and through this 50-hour marathon radio show, doing raise money for this cause. So it just very, very thankful. There are a lot of people all over the world that are listening that know, just based on your words and what you said, how much awareness just a sentence or two brought to what we're trying to accomplish here.
The person to really thank then would be Steve Ruddock, because he sent me a tweet where he I read his little piece on the Nazis over at 2+2, Mason Malmuth, in his freaking white robe, came down on something, and we don't support charity. He's just a dickhead. Just a douchebag, dickhead, scumbag. And it makes me sick that they take this so seriously. It's just not that big a deal, man. It's just charity. You're trying to do something nice. They're not going to steal your profits away. They're not going to destroy your website. It's just like the paranoia and the sort of idea that this is the most important discussion ever, whether or not this post should stay up. It's just retarded and stupid as far as I'm concerned.
Well, not to interrupt that rant, but I just want to give a special thanks to the anonymous donor who just donated $400 to the 22Q Charity Fund. Thank you so much. You asked that your name wasn't given, but thank you. We really appreciate it. Not to interrupt you there, Daniel, but as they come in, I like to announce them. Did you get any? Did you actually have to I know when you had your issue when you were banned on 2+2 for the most ridiculous thing in the world. It's okay for somebody else to post a video, but it's not okay for you to post it. Just crazy. Was that just the final straw? Are you done posting there for life now?
Yeah, no. When that happened, I'm just like so sick of that kind of. I just don't like that kind of censorship and that. I just didn't like the way that they handled it. Had they handled it better, had that kook moderator would have been like, well, after I spoke to him on a radio show, on the Quadjacks radio show, I thought everything was fine, and then he went on there and started, calling me stupid and all this stuff, and I was like,
Wow.
Really? That doesn't seem very smart. So I was like, first of all, I don't need it in my life, you know what I'm saying? With this day and age, with social media and Twitter, if I want to communicate with fans or people, it's very easy to do, and I don't need a forum. Plus, I have full contact poker, so if there's anything that I want to discuss poker-wise, I can always do it on my own forum, and I have no use for them necessarily. Like, it's not something I don't support the way that they run their business, so I'm not going to help them in any way by posting on there.
Yeah, it's a great outlook to have, and I wish more people had it because I think a lot of people feel the same way that you do, but they're just creatures of habit, so they just continue to post where they're
Every
comfortable.
empire falls eventually. It's true. Like, if you look at history, every empire eventually the civil unrest happens, and another forum is grown or another sort of scenario. And I'm not saying it's going to be mine because I don't have the time and energy to do that. But, to assume that they have a stranglehold on it forever is short-sighted. And, it's just history proves that when people are too full of themselves in terms of, their authority, that people revolt against it.
But before this particular incident, and I guess going back to when you were banned, did you have a lot of personal interaction with Mason over the years?
I've always known Mason to be an absolute whack job, like an absolute guy who's like it's very dangerous for him to be walking the streets because he's such a nutcase. Like, I mean, stories of him like walking in the poker room and saying like, I won't even mention the person, but he told a poker player saying, "Did you put a bomb under my car? Someone put a bomb in my car? Who put a bomb in my car?" Like, totally just nuts. Like, he's just crazy, I played poker with him a long time ago, and he lost the pot, and there was like some thick smoke coming out of his ears, and his face went beet red, and just a weird dude, There's a lot of stories over the years of people interacting with him, and from a social perspective, I don't know that he has any real emotion outside of like that frustration and anal retentive way of life. But I mean, in terms of like as a human being, there isn't much to prove that he is one.
He just seems just a miserable human being. Just my interactions a lot. He used to play very often in the 2040 or 4080 limit that I play at Bellagio, and even watching him play, he doesn't talk to anyone. He just seems miserable. Just life. Nothing to enjoy him at all.
Well, no, he can't. He doesn't smile. That's not part of his repertoire. Just one of those guys that, like, back when I used to play limit games in Las Vegas when I first started out, there was two types of pros. There was the pros who, when tourists came to town, they would be friendly, they'd talk to them, they'd make them feel comfortable. And then there was the nit, the scummy, cancerous cells like him who were destructive to the game, who made the tourists feel uncomfortable about playing badly and didn't have any sort of fun atmosphere to it at all. Very cold to themselves, reading a newspaper, whatever the case may be, but had nothing whatsoever to the experience for any of the quote-unquote weaker players.
Well, Daniel, shifting gears, because I don't want to make this all about that, because we're here to talk about poker and positive stuff. I don't want to make, draw a negative light on it. Let's talk poker. We got some questions from our chat. You're playing online in the W Coop right now. People want to know who's the best online player out there right now. It seems like it changes with the weather. Who's on top of the world online? Who right now do you think is the best player online?
One of those questions that simply doesn't have an answer that can have much validity to it. I remember in the movie The Color of Money, when Paul Newman was talking to Vince, and he says, the balls are all funny for everybody sometimes. And like with poker, each year you see some guys have a big year, whether it's live or online. Whether they have staying power is another thing. So, the newest flavor of the month, a lot of that could be a little bit of run good. So it's hard to say, who the best is at any given time, because also whoever the best player is doesn't always play his best all the time because of whatever, other issues he has going on in his life. So, but aside from that, I wouldn't even know who the best online player is because I don't play enough.
And Daniel, they're asking in the chat too, what's your personal opinion of Isildur?
I love him. I mean, absolutely love the guy. He's such a great kid. He's such a good human being. He loves the game so much. He's one of those people. If you read Phil Galfon's blog, I agree with pretty much the entire sentiment. In that, he's one of the few people that really is fearless because he really doesn't care about all his money. And there's something old school romantic about that to me. That he puts it all on the line like that. But I mean, on a personal level, he's a quiet, mild-mannered kind of guy, the exact opposite of his playing style, which is kind of relentlessly aggressive,
If you had to compare him to anybody from, quote-unquote, the old school of poker, who would you say he's most like?
The truth is, Victor Blom is so unique in that from the old school, there's nobody else that is capable of even understanding the game at his level. I would say that the one young guy he reminds me of to a certain degree would be Phil Ivey, when Phil Ivey was younger. I guess because Phil Ivey's considered old school somewhat now, but Phil Ivey did some things when he was younger that other people weren't. He was way too aggressive and kind of in your face, and when he started to hone that in a little bit, which is similar to what Victor's done recently, he started to really, really do much better.
Yeah, and also they're asking if you can give your opinion on, since you're such a great ambassador for poker, they want to know your thoughts and any commentary you might have on Matt Marafiati.
Oh gosh, poor kid. I don't know. The kid is the first sort of altercation I had with him was he wrote this blog about me, calling me out, telling me I suck, and he wants to put me heads up and da-da-da. So I had a run-in with him at the Bahamas, and where it was we were face-to-face, and, what's up? You want to step to me? We'll do something. But, and later that night, I realized he's just a troubled kid. So later that night, I was hanging with a couple of his friends. I was playing with Bill Reynolds and Richard Lindaker, who's Nutsino online. And they knew him, and they're friends with him. So I said, you know what? Tell him to come up here. And, we'll hash it out. So we did that, and I've been friendly with him. As far as, his, personal life, I just feel like the guy, it's very obvious, clear that he has some instabilities mentally, and I don't think that's something he would deny. Read his tweets. When he goes off, he's obviously manic. He's obviously got a lot of problems. In terms of, the whole cheating thing, I don't even know what happened there. I don't know if he did it or not. I haven't really looked into it too much, but overall, he's just one of those kids that he's got problems, obviously.
Daniel, many people know you're self-proclaimed a stats geek in just many different areas, and a lot of obviously different things, all-time winning list, amount of cashes, braces, a lot of those things mean something to you. Do you see yourself trying to obtain a lot of those records in the online game now, as well as in some of the things that you've obviously done in the live circuit?
Well, last year was the first year that I sort of played a full circuit of W Coops, and I really enjoyed it. And like I said, I cashed 15 times and thought it was a lot of fun. So it's really at this point, it's the only online series I care about. But it's really fun. I like any sort of grind where it's 3 weeks and you got 50 tournaments to play, and there's a Player of the Year award. I've always liked that. Even in the late 90s, I used to play at Foxwood in Los Angeles specifically to try to win the best all-around. And I've done that several times in my career where I've won the best all-around player award. And it's fun. It's it's a competition. It's less about the money. It's more, it is just a case of a fun competition.
And do you think playing online so much is still making you a better player at this time or stage in your career?
I don't know that it's making me a better player, because when I play online, I play completely different in terms of how I approach the game versus live. When I'm playing live, I'm looking at people and I'm making live reads, and I'm playing situationally, where online I'm basically playing a lot more based on numbers, and but it is much more convenient and enjoyable. I mean, I like the fact that I'm in bed and I can play all these things in the comfort of my bed. I wish I could play them in Las Vegas, but Uncle Sam or the U.S. government has said no, not yet.
How soon, in your opinion, do you see PokerStars back in the States?
Oh boy, it just depends on so many things. I'd like to say 2014, 15, but I don't know. There's that it could be as soon as that, or who knows? I don't know. So many things are on the hinge in the balance of if we go one way or the other. This election's obviously important. As you can see, the Republicans once again, added sort of a ban on online gaming to their platform. And so if the Republicans, who already kind of control the House and Senate, say if Romney won, I think that would cause major problems for legislation for online poker.
Daniel, more questions coming in from our chat. User Vern wants to know, now that the full tilt stuff, the dust has kind of settled with it, and PokerStars has stepped in and they're moving forward with it, do you think, now that this controversy is winding to an end, do you think that we'll ever see a day where Howard Lederer or Chris Ferguson play in a World Series of Poker event again?
Well, I would hope not, but I think that they probably will come back. The thing that I find interesting is Doyle actually sent a tweet out that made my jaw drop. I was like, what is wrong with you? And he was congratulating Howard on this, and it's like this deal happened in spite of Howard and Chris and them. They did everything possible to shoot themselves in the foot, wasting 7 months talking to a convict named Bernard Tapie, who was fixing soccer games. You wasted 7 months trying to make a deal with him and not looking at potentially talking to other people about better options. They've done everything to screw this up. So as far as I'm concerned, they're not forgiven at all. I mean, just because PokerStars came to the rescue, to fix this. Had that not happened, what other options were on the table at this point after all this? Nothing. The players would have been completely screwed. So really, this is a case of where, I don't give them any leeway or forgiveness for the fact that players are going to be paid, because it had nothing to do with them. It was in spite of them.
How proud of you to be a part of PokerStars for coming in and obviously, basically saving the day and being a lot of people's saviors at this point.
I mean, you couldn't be more proud of the association. I mean, frankly, they didn't have to do this at all. I mean, they really didn't. There was no reason that they had to save the poker world. But, and I've talked to some people, and one of the main reasons they did was they wanted, and, again, obviously they're a business and they want to do what's best for their company. But one of the key things that they addressed is the fact that, Full Tilt going down was bad for online poker in general, which in turn is bad for PokerStars because it sullies the name. So they wanted to help clean up the industry, and they've always wanted to do that. That's why, they're regulated in 9 countries, more than any other site. That's why they have an entire section of their office with lawyers dedicated to simply talking to different governments about regulation, even though they don't quote-unquote need it in certain countries, and it costs them money. What people don't realize is, now they have the .it and the .fr sites in Italy and France. Well, they're paying heavy taxes on that they probably wouldn't have, or so that they wouldn't have had to pay before it was regulated. So regulation is expensive, but they want to do things the right way, and they want the industry to be seen as reputable, upstanding, and legitimate.
Daniel, another user in our chat wants to know, do you think we've seen the last of the Annie Duke enterprise?
Well, just like any really powerful cockroach, there's Raid you can spray with, you can respray with a whole bunch more cockroach juice, but somehow she's found a way to pop her ugly head back into her industry time and time again. So it seems to me that, from what I've heard, that she's continuing to represent herself as a poker pro and take gigs where she's teaching poker to people. She's just avoiding, I think what she's doing now is avoiding the mainstream poker public and staying to the fringes, maybe the Hollywood cruise or Disney, doing appearances and things like that where people don't know the truth about, who she is and what she's done in our industry. So I don't know that she has many options because, she's not going to make money playing poker. And what she's going to probably, try to survive some way, which is to continue to use what little cachet she has with the outside fringe of poker. So as much as I'd like to see her completely gone, And I've also heard rumors about Jeffrey Pollack, which is very, very disheartening. It's William Hill apparently is potentially hiring him as a consultant, which I think is offensive to the poker community as a whole. Because if he's going to be making money off of poker, how about paying off the debts that he owes some of the people in the poker world before accepting a new paycheck from another company? So if that's true, and I'm going to wait to make sure that is, but I'm pretty sure it is. I'm certainly going to voice my opinion on him getting poker paychecks.
I can't agree with you more. When I heard the William Hill thing, it was just like a huge facepalm moment for me. The guys in the chat, Daniel, are firing off questions left and right. I know that you've said in the past that Jennifer Harman is the best female player in the world, but this is before we had an influx of really great, phenomenal female poker players. I'm wondering, actually, user Vern is wondering, do you still consider her to be the best female poker player in the world, or do you think somebody else has stepped up?
Well, that's an interesting question, and it really depends on what you define poker as. I think it's, first of all, if you're talking no limit hold'em, poker tournaments or cash, Vanessa Selfs clearly is the best female player, I think. And, just in talking to her and, how quickly her mind works and how quickly she adapts and just how her results are, unspeakably great. In terms of mixed games, if you want to talk about, like all the games, I think players like Maria Ho and Jennifer Harman are still a little bit of a cut above. Even though Vanessa did win a mixed game event, which is pretty impressive, she's pretty new to it still. Like she plays, she doesn't play a lot of the stud games yet, but she's learning. I think within 3 to 4 years, once Vanessa has more time to play all the games, I think that she's capable of being the best all around in everything. For the time being, I'd say she's the best no limit hold'em player in the world, clearly. And then I still think that Jennifer on a regular basis in the cash games, playing mixed games with some of the best players in the world is to this day the only woman that does that. And until that changes, in terms of all around ability, and again, Jennifer's no limit. No limit is probably one of her weaker games, which is why she doesn't get a lot of attention, because she doesn't travel for these no limit tournaments, and she's not in the public eye doing that. But in terms of like, if you go day to day, day in day out at Bellagio and Aria, she's in there grinding.
And just to follow up to that, they're doing a reality show that Jennifer Harman's going to be a part of on the Power Women of Las Vegas. Does it make you feel good that they finally got it right for a change, instead of going to the loudest, most vocal female poker player, that they actually went to someone who deserves the accolades?
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously anytime, like we have a fraudulent representative for our community, it looks bad on us. Like, and I'll tell you the truth, I like Beth Shack, I think she's cool, whatever, but when she goes on shows and talks about how she's a professional poker player and she's got this big shoe collection and all that, it just rings as disingenuous. Because, like, everyone knows she didn't get all those shoes and all that stuff from poker. She got all that stuff from marrying Dan Shack, okay? So let's, tell the story, tell the truth about the story. She's been on a few reality shows kind of touting herself as a professional poker player. And, of course, before that, we had Annie Duke, who, she didn't really make money in poker. She was always being staked until the point where nobody would stake her anymore. And then, she started to use her phony notoriety, claiming she was the best female in the poker player in the world, to, try to make money elsewhere through Ultimate Bet and other things like that, or through writing books and whatnot. But it is nice to see that Jennifer's getting involved in this reality show. I was on it. The other day. I met some of the other women on the show, some really interesting characters. You'll see it's going to be quite a cast of a wide variety of different types of women in Las Vegas who are cougar-esque, if you will, and pretty hot too.
Well, without getting too personal, I will say that you have your game selection as far as the females are concerned is definitely top shelf. So if you say that they're pretty hot, then I'm going to have to say that that's definitely the case.
They're cougar hot. There's like a difference between like hot and cougar hot, but they're cougar hot. And typically I haven't really dated girls my own age for a long time. But these girls, you look at them, you're like, you know what? Yeah, I could see them being. Where am I going with this?
What's your wheelhouse? What's your zone? Is it like 21 to 25? Is that where you like to fall?
Well, and this is the absolute truth. Like, I don't ask how old people. I don't really care as long as they're like over 21. Cause
Yeah, but you kind of know where you're winding up.
Yeah, I don't care about the age. There's just a certain type of personality. Because I feel young. I feel about 24, 25. So I usually, have the tendency of the between, like you said, 21 to 25 or 26. But it's not like I'm specifically going after girls that age. It's just,
I mean, I'm going to say somebody who's studied other people for a living for almost 2 decades can probably tell exactly how old somebody is. Just by
but I don't care. What I'm saying is, like, I wouldn't look at a girl who's 32 and be like, oh, no, can't date her, she's 32. I don't care how old a girl is. I don't care if she's 45, 32, 21, Again, the only thing I care about is if she's too young, like 18. That's like, nah, can't be doing that. But anything between 21 and 50. Although I say that and I just have it. But the truth is, it's harder to find what I like in older women, generally speaking, because for a lot of reasons. just leave it at that.
Is there any love interests right now that we might not know about?
Oh boy.
Come on.
Let me see. Nobody you'd know.
Oh, okay. Nobody we'd know, but there's definitely somebody.
Nobody you'd know. Yeah, definitely. Just nobody you guys would know. And,
Dano, do you have any prop bets coming up on the W Coop with anybody?
Well, we have a small one. Myself, Eugene Kachalov, and Elke are a team against Kevin McPhee, and I don't even know who the other two guys are, but he's got 2 other guys living with him in a room, and I'm a luck sack, so he did well last year as well. And so there's us 3 against them 3 for a small amount, but that's pretty much it.
Daniel, do you find it hard to get motivated for poker at all, especially with all the traveling, and you're talking about San Remo and 3 weeks of the W Coop, and then, I mean, before you know it, you're back to the turn of the new year and the PCA and all that stuff. Is there ever any days where you just don't want to, where you're just like, you know what, man, I'm just sick of poker. I just don't want this to be my life anymore?
No, because, when I was younger, I played too much. Well, I mean, I played so much because I was trying to build a bankroll. But now I pretty much only play when I want to play. The only times I feel like I don't want to be there was like in ETT Barcelona, which I was so disappointed in myself. But I was sick the first time in a while because I took Sudafed, and that made me groggy, and that caused jet lag. And I was on day 3 in the money with 118 players left with an above-average stack, and I just did not play well, And I guess I have an excuse, which was the fact that I was exhausted and sick, but I feel like I was just disappointed in myself because I'm very hard on myself, and I made some mistakes that I just don't do, and it cost me. I mean, I ended up getting unlucky. I had 2 kings against ace king and ace queen for a huge pot all in, and I lost, but it was before that, a hand I played, I was like, what the heck did I just do there? So that, after that moment, I was like, ugh, I just want to go home. I just don't feel like being here, and I needed a week at home to recharge my batteries. But every time I go home for a week or 2 and recharge my batteries, I always start to get the itch again to get back out there.
That's awesome that you've been able to maintain that for as long as you have. I would think that there has to be some level of burnout, especially with, I mean, your schedule's, it's not like the schedule of a grinder where they're just grinding day in and day out. On top of that, you've got various game shows that you're doing, and made for TV poker and interviews and all this other stuff. I would think that, that there would be some days where you just say, you know what, I wish I was, I don't know, I wish I was an astronaut. I wish I didn't have to deal with any of this.
No. You see, what people don't realize, when I was in my early 20s, there'd be a period where, say, for example, in November, I'd spend all of November in Foxwoods. And this is when I was living in Toronto. I would spend all of November in Foxwoods and play a tournament every single day for a month. In December, I'd go to Atlantic City for a month and play every single tournament. In January, I'd go to Las Vegas and play the Rio tournament and another tournament for the entire month. In February, I'd go to Los Angeles and play the full month of the LAPC. So there'd be 4 months straight where I'd be living out of a suitcase and playing a tournament every single day. And these were $300 buy-in events, $100, $300, and $500 buy-in events. So when I compare my schedule now to that, my schedule is easy compared to that because I don't play any side events anymore. I only play main events outside of W Coop and World Series of Poker. I only play just basically like big prestigious events, and that's it. And outside of that, I make sure to have a balanced life where I do the things that I want to do.
Daniel, many of us know that you're a huge NHL fan, and coming from the chat again, there's some guys in there who really want to ask you, what do you think about the NHL lockout and no deal at this point, and do you hate Gary Bettman?
I actually spoke to Gary Bettman once for 3 hours at the All-Star game the other day. We had this lunch, and he's Jeffrey Pollock's brother, so he probably wouldn't like me now, but we got along fine. I spoke to a lot of people in hockey who absolutely hate Gary Bettman. I spoke to a lot of the hockey players, and I did this charity event for the NHL with the NHL alumni. And the word on the street is Bettman wants this lockout. The owners want this lockout. The document that they sent them is like 800 pages long, and the time frame they gave them to get a response back is so short that it's almost like ensuring that there'll be no chance of a September 15th deal. Like, not one person I spoke to thinks there's a chance in hell that it can start on time. They were split 50-50 on whether or not there'll be hockey by Christmas. The real big carrot at the end of the stick is the outdoor games worth $50 to $60 million to the league because it's such a draw, especially Toronto, Detroit this year. So if they don't get it done by December, there'll definitely be no hockey this year. But if they're smart, they'll try to get something together by December. So a couple of players I talked to were like vehement that there's definitely not going to be any hockey at all. But I don't know. I think it could go either way at this point, but you certainly won't see anything happen, I don't think, before December.
And how are you feeling? How are you feeling about your Leafs going forward in the future? Do you think they have any chance to make the playoffs anytime soon?
My Leafs. You know what I like? I like Phil Kessel and Tyler Bozak. They're golfing here every day now. They're not doing nothing but golf because there's nothing else to do. But in terms of like the team and its future, the way that it's structured, I don't see a lot of potential to be good anytime real soon. And I don't like the way that they structured the team at all. Like Phil Kessel's a friend of mine, but I actually tell him all the time. I said 2 first-round picks in a second for you was a terrible deal for that team. He's like, wow, what do you mean, man? He's like, he had 82 points last year, right? But I'm saying 2 firsts and a second, that's how you build a team. The problem with the Leafs is they spent too much time trying to become okay and mediocre rather than realize, okay, we suck. Let's build through the draft properly. Build a nucleus of young players, really good top end, like what Edmonton's doing now. You don't think Edmonton in 3 years is going to be ridiculously good? Because they're like the last, they keep getting the number 1 pick or not top 3 pick. They've got all these, they're stocked with young talent. Whether they keep it's another question. But Toronto's a city where they could. So if they stunk it, they tanked for 3-4 years, held all those draft picks, built a team, you can build a dynasty. But they just never seem to want to do that.
Daniel, this is amazing. Do you ever see yourself, say if you ever stepped away from the game of poker, you talk so much about how to properly beat a game show like Survivor, how a team like an NHL team should actually run their team properly and build up through the draft and things like that. Do you ever see yourself trying to pursue a job in some sort of corporate America, or maybe being a GM or something like that in some sort of sports franchise? Because you really speak so knowledgeable about it, not just with passion, but just like you have so much knowledge beyond it. Do you ever see yourself pursuing something like that?
Well, the first problem with that is, you'd have to wear a suit, I think, which is like a big no-no. I'm not a suit and tie, go to the office kind of guy. It's kind of why I chose to play poker for a living. Having said that, if I had $200 million, I would love to take part in buying a hockey team in Las Vegas or, the second team in Toronto or own a piece. That would be a lot of fun. But as far as like me doing an actual job, part of why I play poker is freedom, and I enjoy my freedom.
Daniel, I don't want to keep. I know you've been on with us for a while now, and I don't want to keep you, but we do want to thank you for taking the time to help bring awareness to this very worthy cause and spending some time talking with us here. Everybody in the chat is really thankful too. They're all sending their best wishes, and they really hope that you take one down at the W Coop. And everything else.
No, in about 9 minutes, I'll be jumping in that rebuy tournament, and the very first hand, I'll not be just going all in blind. So, something to look forward to.
Is this going to be another
rebuy tournament?
Is this going to be another 37 rebuy like the 1K at the World Series?
No, not quite. I'm probably just going to go all in the first hand and then reassess, depending on what the table looks like.
That actually brings up an interesting question that I want your opinion on, and I'm sure whatever thought process I have is wrong, and you're gonna let me know why it's wrong. But do you miss live rebuy tournaments since re-entry tournaments have taken off?
I wouldn't know. I mean, I spent too much money on those things. I was actually one of the people, and this is why I get offended when people say that, I'm always about what's best for me and not what's best for poker. And there's so much evidence to prove that's not true. And if they only knew, like, rebuy tournaments, the World Series of Poker, even though they give me a better chance of succeeding, for sure, because I'm willing to rebuy, I was one of the people that was, I was one of the ones pushing to get rid of them because I felt like it taints the value of bracelets when you have some people who can just guarantee a big stack like myself. And, a World Championship event should be like a level playing field. I think rebuy tournaments outside the World Series are fun, and they're really cool and neat. But in terms of, like, it being a bracelet event, if that means anything, then you shouldn't just give people, like, their for the size of their bankroll shouldn't give them an innate ability to actually, have more bracelets because of that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. How do you feel about re-entry tournaments? Are you indifferent on them, or do you have a strong stance one way or another?
No, I mean, I think it's definitely, like, a popular idea, and, for a lot of people who travel, and they travel somewhere and they get busted on day 1A and they don't really want to just go home right away, I think it's great to give them a chance to get back in on day 1B. It certainly makes the prize pool bigger, and again, it's a question of, like, how much does it affect history? Well, it's open to everybody. It's not so outlandish where a guy can just be at a table and rebuy 40 times. I think it's a reasonable kind of opportunity for people with a little bit, more time and money to give themselves a better chance. But it's not so out of reach for everyone who enters the tournament. So I'm fine with them. I think they're a good idea.
And just the last question we have for you, Daniel. Is your bet still on with Phil Ivey, the, I guess, speculating, 200K, the bracelet bet? Is that still running?
Not just bracelet, but tournament. And last time I checked, my count was 200,000 lighter when he won in Australia, and I came fourth. That was so annoying. There was 4 left. I was chip leader. He was like middle pack, and I said, you know what? This would be really sick is if I bubble this thing and then you win, because I was a 250,000 buy-in. Third prize was 800,000, right? So I bubble the thing, lose 250, miss out on the 800, and have to pay Ivy 200,000 more. I didn't sleep at all that night. I was pretty annoyed.
Wow.
That's actually probably that's probably the sickest beat in poker.
Gus knocked you out?
Yeah, well, no, it was Patrick knocked me out, but Gus was all in like 87 times, and he was 87-0, and it was just so frustrating. And then I finally went all in, and Patrick snapped me off the jacks.
So does that bet just stand at U minus 200, or is it a running total, or is that just where
no,
you're...
I paid him that. But sometimes we have like a tab. Right now we're actually dead even. He doesn't owe me nothing. I don't owe him anything. But sometimes, we might have a figure between us.
And what's the only standing with that? If both of you enter the same tournament, no matter what the buy-in level it is that tournament that bet is on?
Yeah, every tournament we both play.
So if you both happen to randomly walk into the Orleans and play the 120 nightly, there's 200K for the win if one of you wins it?
You know what? That would be the only reason we do that. Because we have a 200K side bet.
Listen, Daniel, I know you got your tournament coming up. We really appreciate everything, man. You don't know how much it means to us.
3 minutes and counting.
3 minutes and counting.
Come on and join me.
Yeah, go and join Daniel. Get in there and play it, and I hope you win it, man. I really do. We're huge fans of you, and we really appreciate everything you do.
And have a couple drinks with Victor. Have a couple drinks with Victor Ramden for us. All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks for being with us, Daniel.
Take care.
All right, Daniel. Thank you so much.